understand what's God's part in our lives. What is the role God plays in our lives? Of course, God is a creator and He's there for us, but what exactly does God want us to convey? Uh, that what is His role in our personal finances? Lord is the owner of everything. As per 1 Chronicles 29:11, yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. So basically, in the Bible, Lord, God has over 250 names, and mostly He is described as the master. Okay, in the area of money, God is described as the master. Job was able to worship God because he knew God was the owner of all his possessions. We all know the story of Moses. Moses, you know, though he was born in a Hebrew family, Moses was brought up in the Pharaoh's family. He had everything going for him. He had all the riches going for him, but he forsook all those treasures because he got a call from God and he chose that call over all the possessions. Okay, because he wanted to accept the role which God was going to give him. Okay, so God plays a part in our lives, and we need to be ready to accept that part. Okay, so there are four parts of God's position in our lives as master. First is ownership. Second is control. Third, Lord is the provider. Fourth, God gives us our possessions. Okay. So first is God is the owner. He has got the ownership of everything on earth, of all the possessions that we own or which is there on the earth. God controls all these possessions, and we'll come to know a little later. God is the provider of all these possessions to us. We were never born with all these possessions. Okay, we acquired one by one in our lives. Our parents acquired. We acquired something with the skills that we grew up with. We honed our skills, and God helped us to acquire a lot of possessions. So God is our provider. He has provided all these possessions, and God gives us these possessions. Okay, so He will choose. God chooses whom to give what. He has the ultimate right. He has the ultimate decision. Okay, ownership. The Lord owns all our possessions. Okay, as per the behold, to the Lord your God belong the earth and all that is in it, as per Deuteronomy. The earth is the Lord's and all it contains. Okay, so the Lord is the owner of all the possessions. Whether you own any possessions, whether you own a property, you own a car, any asset, you may be having money in your bank balance, you may be invested in shares or mutual funds or land. Ideally, the Lord is the owner of all these possessions. The Lord created all things and He never transferred ownership to people. Okay? We are temporary owners on earth. We may register a property in our name. Okay, but after us it goes to maybe our family or maybe goes to somebody else. Okay, there are investments in our name, but all these are of the Lord. Okay, on the earth we may transfer some of these on our name, or maybe we are holding it in our name, but the ultimate owner is the Lord. We have heard that the pharaohs, the kings of Egypt, couple of thousand years back, whenever they used to die, there was a ritual where they used to uh, make where they it was already foretold, it was already told to all the people who were there that when the king dies, all his richest possession, choicest of possessions, should be buried along with the pharaoh in the pyramid. Because there was a belief that when the pharaoh when they move into new life, that was the belief that they had, that they would go along with their new possessions, so that their possessions will be there with them. But we all know that we came here without anything. We were born without any possession, and we will die leaving everything back here on this earth. We should not forget that the Lord is the owner of all these possessions. The possessions are going to remain here. We can't take it anywhere. Okay, unless we accept this fact, it will be very difficult for us to bring a lot of changes in the way we look at money and the way we look at possessions. When we acknowledge God's ownership, every spending decision becomes a spiritual decision. Uh, there's a lot of, I would say, this is a very powerful statement, you know. Let me give you an example. The very fact of, let's say, buying something which is not a need, you know, it's a want. We want to buy a car, a fancy car, and want to buy it at by taking a very huge loan. Okay, but the moment we start thinking that okay, whatever money we have accumulated so far, it is meant for a good purpose. Are our other needs getting fulfilled? Are we able to fulfill our needs of our family members with the money that we have? Is the car, the fancy car, going to help us achieve our objective of providing security to our family? Is the fancy car going to provide income in our retirement needs? You know, so moment you start considering the entire assets, entire income, whatever investments that you have as the Lord's and not yours, you will be very careful when you make any spending decision, because those decisions will be very spiritual ones, because you have accepted the fact that the Lord is the owner of all the possessions. Okay, so moment you accept the Lord's ownership, all your decisions become uh, very thoughtful ones. You start spending time on taking important decisions, and just don't just give in to your you know to whatever you like to do with the money, you know. There are times when I've seen that when people are able to accumulate a good amount of money, sometimes some good bonuses come in, sometimes people receive an inheritance, they are in a hurry to spend that money and buy something fancy for themselves. They could even, you know, look at buying a second property or a holiday home or something which may not really make much of economic sense for them at that moment. Rather than providing for your needs initially and then your wants little later, people are not able to take the right decision. But the moment you uh, mention that oh, whatever I've received is the Lord's and it's the Lord's. It's not. I'm not the owner. I'm only a steward. You know, I can only uh, hold it with me as a steward. I have to hand it over to somebody else little later once I'm no more here. I am only a steward here. Then you start taking thoughtful decisions whenever you want to spend your money. No longer do we ask, Lord, what do you want me to do with my money? You know, this is moment we know that this is my money, this is my land, this is my property. We don't even make the first statement. We don't even say, Lord, what do you want me to do with my money? It is assumed that this is my money and I do the way I want to. You know, I spend it the way I want to. But rather, when you accept the ownership of the Lord, the question that you will want to ask is, what, Lord, what do you want me to do with your money? How do you want me to spend your money? How do you want me to utilize the money that you have given me, the assets that you have given me? You know, so very important. Accept the ownership of the Lord on all the possessions that you have, and so that every spending decision becomes a spiritual decision. Ownership or lordship. If we are true followers of Christ, we need to transfer ownership of all our possessions to Christ. Okay? In Luke, Jesus is mentioned. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Now, if you put in the context of money, in today's terms, as we are discussing about personal finance, what Jesus meant was whatever you have received, whatever you own, you know, that is because of the Lord's giving. Okay, so you can't claim as yours. The moment you give up the ownership, it exactly does not mean you sell everything and, you know, give it to charity. It actually means that you don't remove the pride that you have that this is yours, you know. And we have seen. moment, there are certain people who, when they have a lot of possessions, a kind of pride creeps into them. They feel kind of ego, pride enters them, and that is when that is what the Lord does not want us to acquire. That is why Jesus had mentioned in Luke, give up everything that you have, only then you will be my disciples, which actually means that give up the ownership. It literally does not mean you sell what you have. Give up the ownership, because this is not yours, this is the Lord's who has provided you all these things. Now, how do we do that? What is the way for us to give up the ownership of all the possessions that we have? Okay, so there is something called the quit claim deed. So there is a format which I will share with you in the same drive as last time. It's a format which mentions that I am holding these possessions. This is the property which I own. This is the car that I own. These are the investments that I own. Okay, you mention the names, and you mention below that I give up the ownership of these possessions to you, Lord, because you are the ultimate owner. Okay, so this is basically mentioning transfer of ownership of our assets to the Lord. Okay? Uh, some of you could actually, can you see this deed sample? So it's the deed sample would look like this, made on so and so date, from me, Stephen Fernandez, to the Lord. Lord, I hereby transfer the ownership of all the possessions that I have, whatever value it is. You could take uh, stewards of the possessions about. The stewards will be you, your spouse, your family. You could mention their names because this will be a collective decision. So this is a sample deed, you know. So this I have shared it in the drive. So we can make a deed like this and mention all our possessions and mention that we transfer the ownership of our possessions to the Lord. This will be kept in your family, in your house. You could frame it or keep it in your house, or you could just write this down and keep it in a filed document, so that you internally know that yes, we are not the ownership, and we have done this exercise. We are giving everything to the Lord because the Lord owns the all the possessions, all the assets, all the investments that we have, and we are only the stewards on earth. Okay, so this is another exercise which I will urge you to do this week. So we discussed that the Lord is the owner of all the possessions, and we need to give up our ownership on this earth by mentioning in this quit claim deed that the Lord is the ultimate owner of all these possessions. Ownership or lordship. We all remember that uh, Isaac was born to Abraham very late, after uh, very late. I think he was about 80 or 90 years old when Isaac was born, and that was like a gift from Lord to him. You know, and at that point of time, Isaac was the biggest possession Abraham had. So he always glorified the Lord, saying that the Lord can do anything, everything. Whatever is not possible for man is possible for God. So when Lord told him to give up his son, bring his son, and sacrifice him on the hill, on the mountain, Abraham did not think twice, because he was very well aware that this is the
Yes,
possession.
we
Isaac was
agree.
like a possession for him, was like a very dear to him. Was not mine. It's the Lord's, and Lord has given him to him me. Lord has given him to me, so Lord is asking it back. I have to give it back. And you know what happened when he was about to sacrifice his son? The Lord appeared in the form of a burning bush and told Abraham not to lay his hands on the child and to release the child. Because the Lord was convinced that Abraham uh, was one of the faithful. He was following the word of God, and he knew that, and he was following whatever the Lord had told him to do. That is the kind of faith that Abraham had in the Lord. Okay, so Abraham obeyed God demonstrating his willingness to give his dearest possession. Okay? So, by writing the quit claim deed, we will actually tell Lord that, Lord, you are the owner of all these possessions that we have. Content lifestyle. Now, what are the implications of ownership, and lordship, basically? Okay, the moment we accept that the Lord is the owner of all our possessions, there is a feeling of contentment which comes in. Because now we don't hang into the possessions that we have. The pride factor which gets associated with what we have, what we own, you know, goes away. Because here we are speaking about the Lord being the owner of the possessions. We are just the stewards. It brings in a lot of humility in us, you know, and then we start thinking about being content, trying to live a content lifestyle. Okay, Paul wrote, if we have food and covering, uh, basically for clothing and shelter, with these we shall be content. Okay, the world thinks that more is always better, and that happiness is based on acquiring material things. Okay, it does not mean that you stop working hard. Giving up ownership does not mean that you stop doing what you were doing earlier. You would be in a very good job. You would be owning a good business, and you would have acquired a lot of possessions. You will continue to do well. Okay, the content lifestyle basically means that there will be a lot of uh, happiness factor. you know a lot of times we may have possessions, we may have a lot of riches, but the real happiness is not there within us. Physically we might try to be happy, but internally we are not happy. There is something missing in our lives. you know so the kind of contentment that should be there in our life is what this exercise brings in us. The moment we give up our ownership, there is a new level of contentment which comes into us, and we are able to see world in a very different manner. We are able to look at things not materialistically the way we do. Okay, but we are able to look at things in terms of its actual utility. We will stop acquiring material things which will not give us permanent happiness. We'll start focusing on things which really make us happy. Recognizing God's ownership, this is a new way of thinking. Basically, the Lord's ownership also influences how we care for possessions. Okay. Moment we have said that the Lord is the owner of this house, we'll start taking good care of this house. Moment we say the Lord is the owner of my car, we'll start taking good care of our car. We start holding those things dearly, because this is not mine, this is the Lord. So I need to take a good care of these things. You know, Consistently recognizing God's ownership is difficult. It's not easy, because the world is materialistic today. The world only looks at what possessions you own to give you a status in society. Okay, but it takes time. This exercise will take time. When we write down that quit claim deed, when we start looking at the deed regularly, and when we start contemplating on this fact that this is completely God's ownership and we are just stewards. So gradually you will start recognizing that God is the owner. Immediately it might not happen, because this is something new that we are going to do. But uh, with a lot of practice and with a lot of focus, we should be able to recognize God's ownership. As we said, God's giving up ownership is not easy. Okay, nor it is once and for all transaction. We constantly need to be reminded that God owns all our possessions. Okay, so one of the options could be that if the quit claim deed, okay, you may not want to write the amount there. You may just want to write a general list of things that you own. You can either frame it and keep it in your house, or you can keep it near your desk where you usually work. Desk where you usually spend time, so that you could look at that deed, and you can get reminded of yourself that, okay, I am only a steward. So apart from God's part, which is the ownership of all possessions, God also has control over everything. You know, so God controls everything. As per Chronicles, we adore you as being in control of everything. So the Lord is in control of every event. Okay, we may not be able to fathom the kind of control that He is into, but the Lord is in control of everything. That is a belief that we have, and we need to believe that fact. Even the Gospel has highlighted that in different uh, quotes. I am the Lord, and there is no other, the one forming light and creating darkness, causing well-being and creating calamity. I am the Lord who does all these. Okay, so the Lord is in control of everything. Okay, as human beings, we lose control. Okay, we that's why we are human. Okay, but the God is in control of everything. Every possession that we own, okay, is the Lord's decision. Okay, so the Lord is in complete control of all the possessions of everything that the Lord does. Okay, it is important for us to realize that a heavenly Father uses even seemingly circumstances for ultimate good in the lives of the godly. We have all experienced the last almost 2 years now the difficulties that many of us have gone through. Some people have gone through very severe level of difficulties. Okay, but uh, sometimes the Lord helps us to go through these, and if we are able to keep faith in Him, the reward that comes after having gone through these difficult times is much greater. You know, but many a times we get bogged down by the difficulties so much that at times we lose trust, at times our faith fails us. Okay, but God uses these situations to actually make us more stronger. You know? So there are so many stories of people who have emerged more stronger in spite of what they have gone through in so many difficult times, especially in the last 2 years. Many people have lost their jobs. Many people have uh, you know uh, suffered losses in their businesses. Many businesses had to be closed down. Many assets had to be sold to pay off the liabilities, etc. But I think there are many people who have actually gone through that process, and those people who never gave up their faith in the Lord have seen a new level of confidence in them, have seen a new way of doing things, have seen new avenues opening up for them. You know? So by control, the Lord is able to accomplish His intentions. Joseph, who was the young among the youngest sons of Jacob, we all know what happened. He was loved by Jacob a lot, and that's why his jealous brothers sold him off, you know, as a slave. And at that moment, Joseph would have, thought that probably, he'll have to spend the rest of his lives as a slave. But we all know what happened with Joseph. Okay, his initial days, a few months were very difficult. He had to spend a couple of months under slavery. He was imprisoned, and after that, having gone through that difficult times, his fortunes were he actually went through a very you know after having gone through a very difficult period, he actually saw the great work that the Lord actually does for people who don't, give up on trusting the Lord even through difficult times. Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here. This is what uh, Joseph tells his brothers when he meets them. Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. It was not you who sent me here, but God. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You know, so God used Joseph to do something good for lakhs of people. But before that, before Joseph could reach there, before Joseph could get all the respect and the position and all the riches that he experienced, He had to go through a lot of difficulties. Okay, but he did not give up on believing and trusting the Lord. And in spite of the difficult circumstances that he was in, he completely trusted the Lord, and that is what the Lord did for him. The Lord rewarded him for his trust and faith, and he was made the governor, the one among the topmost person of the level of the topmost, category in Egypt. And he even forgave his brothers because he knew he took them as instruments of whatever happened, that they were part of something which good was supposed to happen to him, and he forgave his brothers also. So this is what is the message which we are getting through the Bible, that Lord is in control of every situation that you are in. The Lord makes us go through certain situations, but the intention is to make us more stronger, because there is something much better, more greater meant for you if you are able to pass through that difficult period with trust, with belief in the Lord. He accomplishes his intentions. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. So if you have the perseverance of Joseph, if you have the perseverance of Moses, if you have the perseverance of several other lay people, there are so many stories that we have heard during this last 2 years of the pandemic. Many people went through difficult situations, but even in that difficult situation, they never let that adversity affect their family, the way they were thinking. you know they still continued helping people, they continued doing good things, and eventually they many of them have done well. Some of them were able to discover new businesses, some of them were able to get good jobs due to having passed through that difficult situation. So they have learned perseverance, and their trust has only become more stronger in the Lord. So that is what the Lord accomplishes. He is able to accomplish uh, the work that He wants to do through you. And when we go through this difficult situation, just believe in the Lord that, okay, this is just a passing phase. You are being tested, and there is something good beyond that period of grief that you are in right now. Okay, so that also helps us to develop a character. The difficult situations also help us to develop a character. Godly character is often developed in trying times. Okay, it is always said that we always forget God when we are in difficult situations. When we are in good situations, we don't give so much of importance to the Lord, to our prayer life. But it's only when we are in difficult situations we start praying, we start thinking of God. So we also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance proven character. I'm not saying that this is written in the Romans chapter 5. Okay. So today what a lot of personal coaches, today a lot of trainers speak to us about character, developing a character, developing perseverance. But here the Bible is telling us, and this is uh, nearly 2000 years old, telling us that your sufferings will help you develop perseverance and also develop your character. So you may be going through difficult situations at the moment. You may be going through financially difficult circumstances. You may have lost a job. Your business may not be doing well. But I think this is a passing phase. Just believe in the Lord and continue doing your good work. Probably, there will be a phase when you will be in a much different situation. Uh, A.W. Tozer has given this quote, God can't use a person to the maximum until he or she is hurt deeply. You know, so when you hurt deeply, that is when you actually, when you've reached the depth of your grief. So we say, it is said that, I mean, you can't go below this level. This is the worst that you are suffering from. There are people who go through a lot of difficulties in life, and at times they say, "Oh, can I come out of this situation? I am in such dire straits. Is it ever possible for me to come out of this difficult situation? You know, and that is a time when you are able to keep a little faith. You know, That is the time when you're able to trust in the Lord. Once you get that perseverance, once you develop that character, I think your only movement will be upwards. You can't go below that. It has to be only upwards. So we learn through difficult times. A character gets developed during difficult times. Okay. uh, Another way of control by the Lord is to discipline his children. Okay. There are many times when we don't give credit to the Lord, for giving us these possessions. There are many times we abuse the possessions that we have. As we discussed earlier, pride comes into our lives. We are disobedient to our Lord, many a time. So that is a time when the Lord chooses us to discipline us. And that could be one of those situations when we could go through difficult times because we have not been diligent in our previously. We have not been honoring the Lord. We have not been taking care of His possessions, and we've been focusing on material things. So that is when the Lord may choose to discipline us through difficult situations, through different situations. But again, that intention of the Lord is good to help us develop a character, okay, and come out of that situation with perseverance and accept the fact that the Lord is the owner of the possessions. We are the stewards, and we need to do better things in life rather than focusing on material things. Those whom the Lord loves, He disciplines. He disciplines us for our good, so that we may share His holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Okay? So here again, this is a very good quote to give us the message that at times when we are in difficult situations, probably that's a message from the Lord that we have been disobedient or indisciplined in our lives. We just need to pull up our socks, trust the Lord, and just move ahead. Uh, so God is the owner, God is in control. Third, God is the provider. Okay, the Lord promises to provide us our needs. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Okay. So we first need to get the Lord's approval. Okay. We first need to follow certain steps as we discussed in chapter one, and this is our second session that we are going through. Okay. Moment we seek the Lord, okay, and try to get understand what the Lord wants us to do, uh, rest all things get added to us. All the possessions, all the riches that we're looking at get added to us. Okay. A lot of times the riches may not, if the riches are material to you, you may not be able to acquire those. But if they are immaterial to you, and if you're going to make good use of those wealth that you're going to earn, okay, then the Lord will provide you with abundance. Okay. You first need to know how to use the wealth that the Lord is trying to give you. Okay, that is why in the last session, when we touched upon the parable of the talents, we realized that all the servants were not given equal talents. You know, so the Lord provides. The Lord is the provider, but He knows what to give and how much to give to whom. Okay, uh, we all know that the Lord fed manna for 40 years in the wilderness. After escaping from Egypt, the Israelites wandered for 40 years because they did not trust the Lord, and that's why they had to wander for 40 years. But the Lord fed them every day. Uh, we all know Jesus multiplied the bread and the loaves and the fishes and fed more than 5,000 men. Okay, even Elijah was fed every day by the raven. Okay, so the Lord is a provider. Don't worry about where your next meal is going to come from. If you have got the Lord's blessings, if you have been faithful uh, to the scriptures, you've been faithful in a way uh, we've learned in the first session, and what we're learning now. The Lord will provide. Okay, you just need to believe that the Lord is going to be providing you. You know, if you have that faith in you, you don't have to worry about the possessions. You don't have to worry about money, job, etc. God is predictable and unpredictable. He is predictable in his faithfulness. Okay? What we cannot predict is how he will provide to our needs. Okay, as we just saw the example of Joseph, he never knew how the Lord is going to provide him. Provide him with all the needs that he had. He never knew how the Lord is going to bring him out of that difficult situation. Okay, uh, so there are so many examples like that that uh, we know that the Lord is faithful. The Lord will not cause us any harm. Whatever lessons that we will learn through difficult times are only to make us better. Okay, uh, but we never know how the Lord is going to provide us with our needs. Either in our initial phase of life, we may have to go through difficult situations, or we may have to go through difficult situations in our middle age stage or towards the later part. But sometimes or the other, we have to go through a lot of these difficult situations because the Lord has a message for us in every of this situation. Either we have not been faithful in the way we've used the possessions that were given to us, either we were not faithful in a way the acknowledgement that we needed to give to the Lord for whatever He has given us. The Lord will make us realize them by taking us through certain phases of life, which we have to pass through with complete faith. Okay, and the Lord is completely reliable. Okay, because He is completely predictable in His faithfulness. That brings us to the part of needs and wants. Okay, we all know need is our regular requirement, our basic needs, and want is something which is like a dream, aspiration, something much more than fulfilling our needs. It is good to have both, but ideally, first fulfill your needs. And once you've fulfilled your needs, once you've created some kind of savings and investments, you've been able to track your net worth, etc., then you can look at wants. You know, the problem with our world today is that we all want to, uh, focus on material things so much that we ignore our needs and we focus on our wants. Okay, that's the wrong thing to do. Focus on your needs first, fulfill your needs, and once you fulfill your needs, along with that, save regularly, maintain a budget, focus on increasing your net worth. And what will happen is that eventually you'll be able to save and invest enough money. Your wants also will get fulfilled. Of course, we all desire to improve our lifestyle, and we have every right to do that. But then do it in a process, in a systematic manner, which the gospel tells us to do. Diligently manage your finances, diligently keep track of your money, check where you're spending, take every spending decision, make every spending decision a spiritual decision, give up the ownership of the possessions to the Lord, and then take those decisions. In that manner, you will be not only be able to fulfill your needs, but you will also be able to fulfill your wants. Because what will happen ultimately, your spending decision will become a thoughtful decision. You'll always put a lot of thought before spending money. Okay. Uh, we can't help if our wants are more than our needs. Okay. First, fulfill your needs. In the case of David, when David faced Goliath, Lord did not give Goliath a height which was more equal to Goliath. David was much shorter. Lord did not give David a huge sword to fight with Goliath. Okay, the Lord gave him only what was necessary to defeat Goliath. Okay, and He gave it to him at an appropriate time. Okay, so God gives us resources at an appropriate time. We have to wait. We have to constantly remain in prayer and wait for our time to come, and the time will come. Okay, because the Lord knows when to give you those things, those resources, those possessions. He will always give it to you when you need it the most, and He'll give it to you at the right time. Fourth one, God gives us our possessions. The Lord gives possessions to whomever, and in whatever quantity He chooses. Okay, both riches and honor come from you. All things come from you. The Chronicles 1. Okay, so the Lord will give possessions in whatever quantity He chooses. Similar way in which we heard about the parable of the talents. First servant got 5 talents, second got two, third one got one. Okay, those talents, it's similar to money, were given to those because master, which is the Lord, knew their capabilities. He knew how much they would be able to use that money, how much they would be able to, what was their level of understanding and what was their level of managing that money. Keeping that in mind, the master gave them those talents. Similarly, the Lord knows us well. He knows how we are going to manage our money, what is our capability, you know. Uh, Keeping that in mind, be content that the Lord will give you. He will give you what you deserve, okay, at the right time. Okay, so as demonstrated in the parable, we know that the Lord will give what is good according to our ability. You know, whatever is our ability and the skill that we have received, we will get our possessions in that manner. If you are able to handle that well, I go back to my session one. If you are able to manage little things well, the Lord will put you in charge of bigger things. Okay, so that's the summary of the uh, today's second session. Okay, that the Lord is the giver of all the possessions. He is the owner of all the possessions. He has control over his possessions, and he gives the possessions to us. He knows how much to give and what to give and when to give, the timing of that to give. Okay, we go through difficult times because the Lord helps us or wants us to develop a character and perseverance. Getting to know God. Our tendency is to shrink God down and fit him into a small mold with our human abilities. A problem is that we don't understand God's greatness. Our failure to recognize God's part is due to the fact that we do not understand the greatness of God. Okay, so we are so much caught up with material things that we don't give importance to God in our lives. Okay, uh, because I am the owner again. I'll go back. I am the owner of the possession. If I own a few properties, if I own uh, some, I own a good amount of wealth. There is a certain amount of pride which comes into us, and which is when we neglect God, you know. So, and those times you're not able to understand God's greatness. Okay. So the summary of today's session was that give God his due. Okay. First point was that God is the owner of all the possessions. Okay. Second, God is in control, complete control of the possessions. Whatever he gives you, he is in complete control. Third, he is the giver of all these possessions. The Lord will give you, and he will give you at a time when you need it. He knows how much to give. So basically, one exercise that we need to do is the quit claim deed that I have prepared a sample. We will need to prepare our own list and transfer the ownership to the Lord. As per that, we can make a note. We can mention it in our in that letter, in that format, and either we could frame it and keep it, or we could laminate and keep that sheet with us so that we could get reminded ourselves regularly that we are only stewards here on earth, and the Lord expects us to diligently manage the possessions that He has given us here, and manage it in the best way possible, and always persevere and come out stronger whenever we go through difficult situations, especially related to finance. You know, because there is a lesson that the Lord wants to teach us because of neglecting our finances in earlier times. We will have to go through some difficult learnings, but if we trust the Lord, we should be able to come out
Exactly.
triumphs. So basically, what happens is that some of us go through extreme situations. Everybody has to go through some level of difficulty or the other. Otherwise, we will never learn. We will never be stronger. Our character will never be strong. We'll never know what perseverance is all about. But some people go through very difficult, trying situations. They lose their possessions. They lose their house that they have. They have to sell their house sometimes to pay off their loans, liabilities, etc. But the moment they realize, oh, this is, I never knew, I never owned it in the first place. You know, Lord gave me and the Lord took it back. With that mentality, if you start working, you can rebuild what you had. You can try to rebuild and recreate what was given to you.
Right.
But you can't recreate with a broken heart. You can't recreate with a sad, feeling within you that the Lord has taken everything that I had. Now I can't do anything. you know so this is the learning that has come out through the second session, that moment you start uh, giving that credit to the Lord, that you are the owner of the possession. Whatever happens to me will happen for my good, and that is a learning that you're giving me. And if I lose some possession, it was yours ultimately in the first place. You had given it to me. You have taken it back. you know
Right.
so that really helps us to pass through difficult situations easily.